Hi, I'm David Anderson, and this is the Timex Sinclair online user group meeting. This is our second official year, Adam?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this
Yeah.
is the first meeting of our second official
Or
year.
third. It was the first. I think we had one at the end of 2021. So
Oh,
2021, 2022, 2023. If you want to count like that, I don't
yeah.
know if you
Okay.
count from 0 or 1.
We
It
are counting from
depends.
zero. We are, yes, because we're computicians.
But yeah, it's 2023.
Yeah, right. So this is our third official year. And while we don't have an official agenda for this meeting, we are going to work on agendas for future meetings and try to have an actual schedule. Be a little more organized this time. But then we'll have lots of open sessions where people
Well,
can.
don't be hard on yourself, David. I think it worked out really good.
We have done great
Yeah.
for
I
what
mean, I
we've done so
hardly
far.
ever complained to my wife about what you did this year. Hardly ever.
That's such high praise. So I want to get a little serious for a moment here. In our December 18th meeting, I had been talking to John Mobley, and I was going to reach out to Bob Swoger to see if he could come and talk to us about all of the just amazing stuff that he did. Bob was responsible for, I think, largely responsible for keeping the flame alive for about 12 years up until the early 2000s through a thing called Sir Clive Alive. And I talked about this a little bit in the December 18th Zoom meeting, which you can watch on YouTube. Unfortunately, the day that we recorded that meeting, Bob was admitted to the hospital, and then he later passed away that evening. So while we were singing his praises, Bob was not doing very well. And I just want to honor Bob and his tremendous amount of work that he did in just keeping people enthused about the Timex Sinclair computers, up through the early 2000s, and preserving a lot of history, which is now preserved on archive.org. So
wasn't he quite involved with the color computer as well?
He was, yeah. So after after Sir Clive Alive stopped publishing, he I think it might have been parallel in time. He joined what's called the Glenside Color Computer Club in Chicago, which is where he lived. And the Glenside Color Computer Club is kind of known for having the last annual color computer club meeting that has been going on for 20 plus years. I think they are into like their 26th or 27th last annual final meeting. And, the joke was that they wanted to have this big blowout a long time ago. A lot of people attended, and so they said, well, we'll do it again, and each one kept being attended. John Mobley told us at the most recent one that there was like 150 people who came to that.
Wow.
To that meeting. Yeah. So he wrote this program.
When you say color computer, are you talking about like Coco?
The Radio Shack color computer? Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is a very nice little system. We won't beat on it too much. But yeah, Bob just did a whole lot of stuff. By way of Bob sent a whole bunch of stuff off to Jack Boatwright, for instance, which Jack held on to for, I don't know, 25-ish years, almost 30 years. And then Jack sent it to me. And so that's how I ended up with some of Bob's program. He wrote this program called Logical. I ended up with 3 bagged copies, the instructions, the floppy disk, and this little key fob that he had made just for his program. I'll try to I'm not sure where those are right now. I think they may be in the basement, but I'll post some pictures later. So with that,
well, I want to say thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to bring that up myself, because it was posted like we had the meeting on Sunday, and then it was posted on Monday that he had passed away, and he seemed to have passed away just an hour or two after our meeting ended. I think
Yeah.
if timing is right or something like that.
Yep.
And I was like, I think I sent you a text message privately saying something along the lines, did he pass away during our meeting? You know, but that timing is because of the Eastern Standard Time and stuff. You know, it was not, but it was kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but it was heartfelt, even though I never met the guy, or I just read about him and heard about him.
Yeah.
It's a loss to the community.
Yeah. And you did so much. It's hard to overstate just how much he did to keep things going. And you can read it in his enthusiasm in what he wrote in those newsletters, and just how much he pushed for people to keep going for years and years. I was really impressed. So we don't have an agenda, but we do have two folks that I'd like to ask us to talk about their accomplishments, things that they've discovered, and then we'll just have an open session, I think. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good. I don't think I
Right.
noticed anyone who's new. Is there anyone here who's never attended before?
We've got all veterans of various degrees.
Okay.
Gustavo, who's on his second meeting with us, Ada, who's come back from being away for quite a while. Yeah. Ryan, you want to show us your calendar program? You've been working hard on recovering your software, and let's check that out.
Well, yeah, in recovering various bits, I'd come across pieces, and I've got old printouts. I do have. I'd used for a couple of years. I would make these silly little calendars on the 2040 printer because I had some calendar program to generate the calendar part, and then I would generate these pictures here and there, and then just use those as the little picture for the calendar. And so one of the things was it had like a double high font that I'd made, and I did come across that, and I thought, well, I've got a couple of these bits here and I can't find that program, so I just decided at the end of the year to recreate it. And so then you get basically things like this. Curly little paper.
Yeah, I said that earlier. I took that and I printed that out, so it's like on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper on my on the fridge,
So,
which
and
is
I
pretty
did,
cool.
and I did do, yeah, because I included a little sample. So, and so via emulation, and I was able to produce. When you put them 4 each on a page, they actually come out to be pretty much the actual size.
So what emulator do you use? You use Fuse?
Yeah, I've been using Fuse. The program runs in the SARX, and I guess the SARX makes the same portable bitmap output. So I think in that regard, this is all the same under the SARX. Although there, I was curious. I haven't been able to figure out exactly how, and Fuse has some issues too of when and where that darn portable bitmap file appears. In Fuse, it had been, well, I'd forgotten to turn on the darn printer emulation and save that setting. And I don't know about Zasarx, but it might have the same limitation, which is you can't, if you want to start that file over, you have to delete that before you launch the emulator. And if you delete it while it's running, it doesn't like that, and it never writes to it until you restart. So basically, you have to delete it, start Fuse, run the program, let it print everything to the file, and then all I've been able to do so far was that image magic commands, which basically chop up the file and reformat it into PDF.
Actually, Ryan, if you have a second, I did read about that and what you did to use the utilities. But for those who haven't read it and for those who see in the future, maybe you can describe a little bit about what you did and the emulator you used and how you were able to get the output to look so clean and pretty sweet.
Well, basically, the emulator, you'll select the. I should probably just bring that up and show, because I always find it useful. Let's see if I can do this. It will focus. Well, here I got my. Come on.
And is this your Raspberry Pi?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm gonna.
If you run a couple apps at once. Nice.
Okay, so under options, we want under peripherals general. We want to make sure emulate printers and ZX printer are turned on. And in fact, let's see. Can't see what I'm doing. I need to go to my home folder. And on Windows, I think this is the C username folder, and not your documents folder. See right there, there's printout text and printout portable bitmap. And so what I really need to do is exit that. Let's select those.
So Ryan, every time you print out something, you have to quit the emulator, or am I
Well, it just
misunderstanding?
otherwise it'll just keep appending it.
Hmm.
So you don't have to.
So
But,
basically, you'd end up with a page that's like 10 feet long, kind of. Is that what would happen? Like if it was a real printer?
yeah.
Okay.
Or does the
No,
image
it's-
file get corrupted because it's being appended?
Well, I guess there's a header in it, so it said something about like it's not like the tap files where you just keep concatenating them.
Yeah.
So it gets upset because then I guess it just writes. It doesn't recheck for the header anyway. I think they could. I think they could probably do it. Okay.
And what two files do you have to select? So after you load it,
He had
So there was printout text and printout PBM,
gotcha.
and I guess we're just concerned with the PBM file. Okay, so I loaded that up. Actually, what I found was I can keep this browser window open. That's helpful.
Ryan, can you give a little more context? You go to, if I wanted to do this myself, I would have to go to SourceForge and get the free Unix Spectrum Emulator. That's what Fuse is on my Raspberry Pi.
You could. I think I just went in through the software. Add remove software.
Yeah.
Pretty sure there's a distro out there, yeah, because I
Yeah.
think I did it.
Yeah, so I run it on Mac and I also run it on Ubuntu.
Yeah,
Right.
so you can get it for multiple platforms.
Okay.
Well, Whenever I'm on this meeting, I feel like the sole Windows user. I'm like,
Well, Adam, I got a little Windows box, so I can join you.
oh, it's just a tiny one, huh? Okay,
So
great.
don't get it confused with the Fuse file system.
Right.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, but it says right there, the
Um,
free Unix Spectrum
So
Emulator.
the free Spectrum Emulator. So I guess there's common files. So there's a GTK Plus version under Unix and probably Mac OS, I guess.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
yeah.
The SDL version, which I forget what that is, but basically it won't be a window menu. It'll just, all the little menus run inside its own little graphics. And that's what's used for full screen stuff. I have both versions installed. I like the SDL version. But I'm having instability issues on my Raspberry Pi for some reason. So I've been using the GTK Plus version. So that's, you know, so you can get it installed, and David could speak to the Mac installation.
Yeah.
I've actually not done that yet. And so I guess Adam could speak to the Windows installation.
Maybe next time. But,
Yeah, how
but
many
it does work. It
how
does
many
work.
Mac users here other than me and Dave?
Well, I do use Mac, but my workbench setup here is with the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, because I think it's as easy as brew install Fuse.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
once you get brew
Yeah.
installed, I guess.
Oh, I downloaded it from the Fuse website. Didn't even occur to me it could be a homebrew file.
Yep.
Okay. Wait,
Okay,
so
so we
Ryan,
got,
before you go any further, what's the
Okay.
difference between tiny and normal dates?
so tiny dates is a thing I added just because I suddenly had an idea. Goes back to Adam mentioned he came across some basic program that was doing some really incredibly slow 64 column printing.
Okay.
And I came up with an idea of how I could make a font and do a little trick to do that fairly quickly. I think I posted that over the holiday.
Yeah.
And so this one I was thinking, oh, could I load up? And I posted that version of TASWide as well. And that made me think, oh, could I just have some smaller numbers so that, you know, maybe you could write something on the tiny little calendar, give you some more space to scribble a date.
That is
But,
awesome to see it like that.
So it was just a thought, and I thought, well, it's only the digits, so I could just make a few user-defined graphics. And since I'd already done this before, so basically just each digit is half as wide. So I load some UDGs where it's in the right 4 columns of the character.
Yeah.
And so I load those in, and then I run a quick loop that basically takes those, multiplies them by 16, and then loads them into 10 other UDGs to create digits on the left half. And then I just have a routine that just says, okay, what's the number? Okay, it's got this tens and this units digit. Okay, take the units digit, copy it into the UDG, the last UDG. Now take the tens digit, take those bits, and then add them to the ones that are there. And that composes it, and then it prints the one character that's the date number. And it isn't too bad, but it does slow it down. But it was just a bit of fun. Otherwise, you would want normal dates, which is just how this just array of characters. And I borrowed and it may have been what I used originally, the calendar program from the Fort Worth 2068 library tape. There's a program for calendar on there. So I borrowed that code, and then wrapped stuff around it.
So,
and
you
then,
know, Ryan, I have a quick question for you, because in person last week when we were together, I was asking you, or maybe it was either way. So sometime in the last week, I was talking to you about if the program was going to be, and this is not meant to sound funny, but Y2K compatible. And I was wondering if it was going to like do the leap years correctly, and because I've used other 8-bit programs from back in the 80s, and they're not correct. So did you have to change it to work, or it just worked out
No.
of the box?
I haven't looked at the algorithm, but it looked like, it was, a bit more than a casual calendar algorithm.
Okay.
And it
Because
does
it
tell
certainly
you,
printed your example that I used was the January 2023, and it worked. It was perfect, obviously.
yeah, so I guess it does some simpler algorithm, because you can't do calendars before the Gregorian switchover.
Yeah,
And
didn't
so
they
I
lose
guess
like
it's,
10 days back then in the 1700s?
well, you can adjust for that, but I think it doesn't want it gets a little trickier, but apparently its algorithm's good for, and it got through obviously Y2K because of with the exceptional what was it, leap year when it was not normally, anyway.
Right. In 2000, I think there was like 7 years without a leap year, something like that.
Although I
Something-
didn't,
or maybe there wasn't.
although I
Maybe it
didn't
was-
actually test it for year 2000. So originally I had, and I should have grabbed that printout, so I can show it to you here in a minute. But those pictures that would load from tape, and so I thought I had assembled, when I found the tape that labeled calendar pictures, well, it didn't have the calendar program for one, and then of course it only had like 6 pictures. And then it had the picture program I used, which I also posted, which was that, what was it called? TechDraw Jr.
In fact, if we can back up for a second, Ryan, I wanted to ask Stewart about this. Stewart, are you there? Can you hear
Yep.
me? Yeah. So you sold TechDraw Jr. in the 1980s? Is
Yeah.
that right? So where did that come from? Was that something from you guys, or was it from England, or what's the story behind that?
I don't remember actually. Unfortunately, I don't remember. I did not write it. Jeff did it. I don't know. When I started Zebra, there was I was associated with a guy who was doing software for the Radio Shack color computer. Okay, and we may have gotten some ideas from him. I don't, but I would be just flat out guessing. Al Hartman would remember all of this. I should send him an email, but I don't know where it came from.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to stump you. It's not a quiz show. It's okay.
It's very easy to stump me.
Jeff is Jeff Street, right?
Yeah, Jeff Street wrote it. But whether what he started from, I don't know. Whether it was from scratch or it was inspired by something on the Radio Shack color computer we had access to. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, originally then I would load up, the program just would load a screen, print the month, or print the screen, then the calendar. But I couldn't find all the pictures, and so I wanted to have something, so I decided I may put in this little thing to generate the graphic just to have something. And so I did that. And so you can pick that. So we'll go ahead and do I got 3 keyboards here, so I'll gotta make sure I hit the right one. So this one go, and it'll do a couple of these things that somebody demoed something like this at a meeting prior, but I couldn't remember which one. With the draw command. And so the emulator, we don't hear anything while it copies it. And then we generate the calendar. So I print my little big font here and then run the little routine, the calendar routine. And so that then gets all echoed. Oh, there we go. So now we got to print out PBM file and print out text. The text probably will be,
That's double height.
literally the
I
date.
recognize that as double
Literally
height
the month
anywhere.
twice because I printed it twice in 2 different fonts, and then the calendar text part, but obviously not the screen string part. So we'll look at the portable bitmap. And
Oh,
voila,
Oh, very nice.
just-
Very nice.
that's just one, obviously. So we'll do another one here and then see how that looks.
and so in order to
Wow.
do the other one, you're gonna have to. Are you gonna have to delete the PDF?
No, no. Oh boy, I keep hitting the wrong keyboard. So I just got this in single month mode. You can, if you pick 0 for the month, it'll do all, but you can do them one at a time. So we'll do February, and we'll let it generate the picture again.
You're gonna have to share your routine there with us too for generating graphics.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like a plot draw with the crazy arc angle that I
Yeah.
spent hours trying to find 12 good ones.
Oh, so
Because
Ryan, is it the same each time when it's done? Is that what it is? It's not random?
This is because originally I put I made a random multiple of pi, but sometimes you get the stinker of just a circle or a half circle. And it was annoying. So, okay, so now there we have 2. And we'll see that this is 736 high, 256 wide. So it's the 256 pixels of the screen wide, and then it's 2 times 368. Yeah, because I've got it where this total height of one month of calendar with picture is 368 pixels. And so then that makes it easy to go in here and give a, boy, I'm gonna have to get rid of this keyboard.
I'm gonna have to come over and be your camera person next time, Ryan.
Yep. Well, I almost called you to say, hey.
I would come over.
So you can give this big, and I gave these in the post. In this case, the image magic montage command to say, we're going to take that portable bitmap, we're going to crop it into pieces of that size, concatenate them, put a little white border spacing around them, tile them 2 by 2, put them in the center of this PDF. Image magic's pretty cool. It's just finding out the options you have to give it can be kind of an adventure. What am I doing? Oh, forgot Unix thing. Okay, and so now over.
Ryan, one of the parts of this that I'm a little unclear on is how much of this is original from the 1980s, and how much did you have to recreate in the last couple of weeks?
Okay, well, we only done 2, so it just put 2 in the PDF here.
That's crazy.
But when you get more, then there'll be 4 on each page as I showed on this printout. Or I guess I didn't show that since we recorded.
Yeah.
Maybe I did.
And so you hooked your 2068 directly up to your laser printer, right? Or your inkjet?
Oh yeah, totally. You should see the driver though.
Yeah, I bet.
Let's see. To answer Adam's question, let's see. How would I answer that? Well, it's a mix. So we can.
Okay, you certainly have the first program of the year. It says January 2023 there. So today's what, the 2nd? Oh yeah, you definitely win that competition.
Yeah, the revision fell out on the new year. So basically, the old part would be I guess the calendar code. Oh yeah, so you can start seeing it there. 1752. Can't do calendars before 1752.
Yeah.
So a tweak there a little bit to interface with my code. So that code, which is in the calendar one in the 2068 library tape from the Fort Worth user group that we'd archived. So that part's truly the old part. Well, I guess that big font that I used for the month and year title, that I recovered. I guess this graphic technique here is just lifted from, I used to use that a lot because it was an easy demo. So I'll show you the whopping bit of code that is. Okay, well, so there's the data statement. It has all the hand-picked multipliers that I have basically.
You know, I want to point out that
Mhm.
Ryan, I don't know if anyone else noticed what Ryan just did, but you know, he's intimate with his program because he's been programming in BASIC in the last, I don't know, a couple of weeks or whatever. And he just said, you know, list from 2000 because he happens to remember off the top of his head that that's where the part that generates the picture is. And that's pretty interesting that, and I kind of forget that kind of thing happens. You don't have to scroll, you can't quite scroll through your program, so you have to keep track of that. So
Well,
interesting.
you can scroll, but it just takes a while.
True enough. True enough. Thank you,
have to,
David.
go through a couple screens worth of scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just got here, you plot at the bottom of the screen in the center, and you're drawing a line straight up the screen to the top. But you're using the over one, the XOR drawing mode, and you give it a crazy huge arc. So it's one of these times pi. And that gives you that crazy, as I understand it, it's a bit of a bug, I think. I remember seeing some article about it or something on it. And it just does that crazy thing. And then you throw in the XOR mode and you get some interesting patterns. But they all, of course, are this circular looking thing. And so some of them are just kind of super boring. So I picked these just to have something. Now, obviously, if you've got your own screens, you can use those, but I didn't have enough of them.
Was that a matter of trial and error to get those or not programs, but the numbers like 1771 on line 2200?
You know, I had it in a mode where I just try a bunch and thought about putting in a thing where it said, okay, did you get a stinker? Okay, let's just try another one. But I said, well, no, it turned out there were only, a lot of them looked very, very similar. They'd be like the reverse of another one. And so to have some that looked unique enough.
Another thing I noticed, Ryan, is, you know, the programming, you know, when I used to program in BASIC, you know, usually go by either 5 or 10 line numbers, right? So, you know, 2000, you have the 2020 there. I noticed in the program, though, it wasn't like that. It was, I mean, there was line number after line number, you know, like 51, 52, 53. So, I mean, if you had to add something, or maybe you already did, but it was very, very tight.
Well, Ryan doesn't make mistakes, so you don't have to worry. He doesn't have to worry about it.
I mean, there were occasionally I had to sit there and go and renumber, but you know, unless you want to write me a ROM that's got the renumber command in it, sometimes it could take a while to go back and make the numbers nice. I mean, I might round trip this through CMakeBase, but oh, by the way, Tim, I did post another issue with it if you're listening.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
And although the other issues I think were with list basic from Fuse Utilities doesn't do free and stick. I think I found that's where the problem was. Anyway, yeah, so then I might be able to do renumbering there more easily.
Yeah, I'm not saying it as a as a criticism or anything. It's just I noticed that, yeah, you know, usually you write programs, it's 10, you know, 10, whatever, 20, whatever. That way you give
Well,
yourself some room to add
well,
things.
and you write that way your first draft.
Right.
And then when you go back and you try to make it work, you're sticking lines in between all those, and
Yep.
then you wind up with 2s and 5s and
Right.
1s. And occasionally you know, renumber a few because I used them all and I got to make room. Yeah, it's you know, and I was trying to get this out quickly, so I wasn't spending a lot of time renumbering
Well,
it. But
good job on your REM statements there. That's especially in the program
Yeah.
area. There was a lot of REM statements that
well,
was
yeah,
just
as you get older, you appreciate the rims more, because you know, commenting your code is rarely for someone else. It's usually for a future you
right.
Yep.
to look at it and go, what in the hell am I doing here? Right. And then you go, oh, that's what I was thinking.
And also, Ryan, for a program like this, it's not like intensive for the processing power. If you were writing a game, the comments would slow it down probably, and you might have to
Well,
avoid them.
I've been wanting to do a little analysis of how quickly the interpreter, because you know what the interpreter does in memory, right? A line is the 2 bytes, I think it is, that store the line number, and then a byte for the length,
Yeah, it's like a total of
And then-
5 bytes for that.
and then the tokens, you know, that compose the line, and then you'll have I guess it's a carriage return at the end. Well, once it's read the line number and the length, it knows how far to skip to get to the next line if it needs to say, oh, this is just a remark, skip. I always wonder, like, well, how much does that all really slow it down? And I know we've talked about how, like, you know, you put your defined functions back up at the very beginning because it's searching from the beginning. Certainly go subs, you know, if you use a lot of go subs, you want the things you do frequently to be at the front of the program, so it's not searching a long time for them. So sometimes you'll see your program organized in sort of this inverted way. It jumps down to the bottom to do all the init, and then the key loops and stuff will be near the front, as will some of the common subroutines it might use.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, it's an interesting thing. I was going to say what Carl pointed out about the line numbers is that you know, I don't know if it was so much the lack of a screen editor in the Sinclair Basic as it was the lack of a renumber command. Perhaps it just made reorganizing your program in large ways not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. So
Absolutely.
you were like, well, I could move this around and that would be better, but boy, that's going to be a lot of work. And so now, you know, if I can dump this out into a text file and do that and round trip it back in, that becomes a lot easier in these modern emulator days.
Yep.
But I've been doing that because, you know, I figured it's going to be another time to get to the hardware, but you know, I had gotten the real one out, as I showed earlier, running on that. I am still, though, having this weirdness of the program loads fine, followed by the font files, but when I then go back to the Pi to play the file for the screen out to it, it doesn't want to load it at all, and I have no idea why. I thought maybe I had made the connection bad in the meantime, but nope, that's not what it is. It's I don't understand it. It's kind of a weird
Ryan,
thing
post one or two of your files to the group .io,
So
and we'll
I gotta
take
do
a
some more
poke at it.
testing.
Okay.
And I think the line numbers too, they top out at what, 9999?
Yep.
I don't think you can go any higher than that, right?
So Carl, you
And
know,
I think that's just because of the way it formats them.
yes.
With 4 spaces, they figure, well, if they could be higher, there must be some optimization there, because certainly they could hold a number larger than that in the bytes.
You can poke a line number to make it into a mix of alphanumerics. you know, then you have to do some work to get
Ooh.
it, you know, get it back. But it'll still
Is
work.
that torturing for yourself? What would you do that for?
I don't know. There was an article about it, you know, and
Okay.
I think you know, whoever sort of discovered and documented that was like, well, you know, here's a potential, you know, copy protection technique or something.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would want to torture themselves with having actually 9,999 lines of basic.
Yeah.
Well, because you can have multiple statements per line, so you can have a lot there. That's the other dodge, is you maybe, you know, stick a thing you need on the end of another one. But certainly it's you have to be super disciplined in the ZX81 basic, because you don't have that
Absolutely.
to do
Absolutely.
things with.
So
So that's kind of the basics of that.
I have a question. You did a double height font for the month and the year, and you said you used did you use
So
like
that's just the same
graphics?
text. So that's just, no, I just had used my font editor back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's the font, the two fonts that is what one of the things I recovered off a tape here recently.
Okay.
So we could, you know, we can go in here and
For a second, I thought you were going to actually play the WAV file, and I was going to have to cover my ears.
oh yeah, so it's in memory still. So there's the bottom half. There's actually, both of them are in memory in different locations. I haven't modified quick font. That's one of the future enhancements, to let it do multiple fonts in memory, but so it only sees the one that's in the normal place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all you have to do is change the pointer to where the font is. You can have a whole bunch and not a whole bunch.
so yeah, well, and then you got to do a little bit more with the memory management to but otherwise, yeah, that's just sort of what I did. And
That's a nice, you know, way to combine two of your programs together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, right?
So that's what I did.
Very
And
cool.
yeah, and then like I say, the little crazy tiny font at the last minute, because I'd been messing with the TAS-wide stuff recently.
Yes, right.
Which I don't know. Adam, you said you thought the one on David's site was okay, because when I loaded it,
No, we were talking
trouble.
about it, but I don't what you were talking about, how like there are different versions, like the one you have is a little slightly different than the one that's archived on his site.
The links were like very different, so
Yeah.
I'll have to look at that again.
Well, so
But,
Brian, I took the one that you posted and uploaded and replaced my link, because my link was going to the World of Spectrum archive. And
yeah,
so it might have been a ZX Spectrum version of TAS-wide that I.
Well, I thought, isn't that the only one?
No, because I think that there was a slightly different version for the 2068.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of, you know, the two machines are slightly different, you know, in terms of.
Oh, I guess because the ROM calls they might have to actually make or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So was my guess right? Does anyone know that they just replaced the pointer to the screen stream and the printer stream to point to their code? Is that, do we know?
Oh, don't know. I haven't looked into it yet.
I might do some digging on that, but it is a pretty cool utility, and it really once you get it loaded, you call it once. Well, I guess you do have to call it every time you want to switch to TAS-wide. And then you print character string 3 for whatever reason, and then you just print, and you can print to the printer or the screen.
Just to back up, because I don't think anyone here has said what TAS-wide is. Would you just describe what that is for future watchers, or just in a couple of sentences maybe, or something?
Yeah, it's essentially basically the 64 column printing engine from the TazWord word processor for the Spectrum. And as David noted, probably a custom version for the 2068. And so they had a separate utility, this small, I think it was like about 2K of code that you loaded, and you could print in 64 columns, which basically it does that like I did with the tiny font here, which was you're just using a 4x8 pixel characters in half a wide, that wind up being half as wide on the normal resolution screen. And you know, those pixels aren't too small, so they you know, they're fairly serviceable. And you could actually, I forget, I have to go back, I forget, but basically if you in that mode and you break out, you can list your program. Yeah, you can list your program to the printer in 64 columns, but also to the screen. But then if you do something and then it reverts to 32 column mode, but with a tiny font. So until you fix that, but yeah, you can. I did have like I think a listing and like using that, so it can be useful in that regard too. So that's kind of a nice little utility to have, and it's not very big.
Thank you for recovering that too. And like I said, I updated the webpage with your version and your little screen capture, and an edited version of those notes, which look like they might have come from the cassette package itself or something.
Which notes?
The notes about how to use TazWide. It was a little text file you posted.
Oh no, I just wrote that.
Okay.
Based on what my fooling around, because I didn't have any. I have the TazWord, a copy of the TazWord documentation, but I didn't have anything for TazWide. So I had some other program that I used it in and saw, you know,
the commands,
what the call was, because it's not at the beginning of the code. So I was able to get the call and see that, oh, it was just the call and a printing of a character, and that just sends you back and forth. But that's kind of it, really.
Very cool.
That kind of brings up an idea in my head, or a question in my head, that I think there's a table somewhere, right, in the advanced or the technical manual for the 2068 where they have the ROM calls, right, or even utilities that are on the ROM, and they have, you know, where they are in the 2068 and where they are in the Spectrum. And I know it just rings a bell in my memory that a friend of mine that was also here way back when, I think his name was Dave Brown, and I believe I have his paperwork, but he went through, and I don't know how complete it is, but he went through and wrote down, you know, where the Spectrum call was, and obviously what the corresponding 2068 call was. And I know that Timex probably had some folks at the time that were probably manually converting, you know, some of the British software over, right? I even think their commercial releases for the 2068 stuff that were Spectrum based, they've had to have some people internally that probably, you know, just kind of recoded those, tested them, and see if they even worked, right? Because I don't think everything's just going to work, even if you just point it to the right ROM calls, right? I think that the XROM stuff might get in the way there.
Yeah, certainly if it wasn't banked in, right?
Right. And I'm thinking that, you know, most simple things like a game or something like that, that doesn't necessarily use the, because I think all the tape routines are in the XROM, but everything else, I'm not sure what else they kind of pulled out of the regular ROM and put in the XROM, but I know they did the tape routines there. So, but most games don't save games, right? They just play. So all the ROM routines they would be calling would still be in the home ROM, right? They'd just be in a different location. But I know there were tables, and I thought there was one in the technical manual that actually kind of listed a lot of the, you know, where the Spectrum calls were, as opposed to, you know, where they would be in the 2068 ROM, so that you could go and have a reference when you were converting a program that was written for the Spectrum to get it to run on the 2068, including, mainly machine code programs, obviously, because basic programs, that's not really an issue other than the new commands, right, that the 2068 had.
Or all the crazy peeking and poking that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying for machine language stuff, yeah, you could obviously take an easy program to well, especially now, I don't know how they were doing it back then. They were probably just loading it into a disassembler and maybe, typing in, doing searches for these particular ROM calls. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you that some games did run, as evidenced by what I found under here. Well, I do remember that Manic Miner ran, but I think we had to change the clear statement in the basic loader, but it ran.
Ryan, has that actually been in there for 30 something years? Or is that new?
It's at least from 1990, probably.
That's awesome. Okay.
Carl, to your point, a bunch of folks did that work, published it in various newsletters. And I think it might have been in the third-party programmer's guide, because that would have been the perfect kind of piece of information for people, because that's what the guide was talking about, was
because I think Timex actually did that.
Programs.
Yeah, I think somebody or maybe a couple of folks at Timex are actually doing that, right? So they could get programs that were in assembly to actually run on the 2068, so they would have some more software.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. No, that's where most of that cartridge and tape stuff was converted Spectrum programs. Hey, Greg, are you ready for us?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna put the focus on you, Greg.
Okay. Let me share my screen here.
Oh, give me a second. It's been a while.
Yeah, you disabled me.
I disabled everyone. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. In the meantime, I was just reading some of the stuff on Sinclair ZX World, and I just happened to run across a little ZX81 utility that allows you to redefine your character set. Well, redefine parts of the character set to user-defined bitmaps, essentially. Allow you to map up to 25 characters. And so when I saw that, I'm like, oh, cool. You have to have a WRX enabled on your RAM pack. You have to have that modification, but I have a ZX band, and I also did it on the emulator, which also can emulate that.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
There's a small hardware hack, and it's pretty simplistic. I can probably track it down somewhere. I've never had to actually do it, but it allows your RAM pack, from what I understand, is that it modifies your RAM pack so that it can access what it thinks is part of the ROM, can actually access RAM, so that you can redefine parts of what's being displayed. The ZX81 actually can display high res by each pixel on your character, but it only allows you to do things by a character, an 8x8 character normally. But that allows you to basically change some of those, change your characters so that you have control of those bytes.
Hey, great.
And so if
I see.
Let me interrupt you just for a second. The WR in WRX stands for Wilf Richter, who was one of the guys who figured out how to do high res graphics through what you were talking about, using the 8K space in memory between the ROM and the bottom of RAM. So the 8K to 16K block. So this routines that you're leveraging, or that this program is leveraging rather, build on that stuff that Wilf did. Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, there's actually, if you're using 81 emulator, if you go into the hardware, it has a section for high resolution, because there were some different things. I know Memotech made a little high res adapter. I don't know anything about the G007, but I'm aware of the WRX. So the first thing I'm like, oh, cool, I want to test this out. And I know in previous discussions we've had, we were talking about that maze that you can generate with Petsky characters with just the 2 slashes. So I'm like, I'm going to redefine a couple of characters and just do that. So I created the thing. Come on, load. So I redefined it, 2 of the characters so that they're just a forward slash and backward slash that goes the full 8, the 8 bits height and width. And you can see it starting to generate that. Let me just crank up the speed a little bit. And
Just
so,
like you could do on real hardware, just crank up the speed.
You're right, exactly.
Yeah,
Turn up the
yeah,
speed
so-
knob.
So all those people with the Commodores now, they can be jealous of us. Unfortunately, this routine doesn't have a scroll. So when I get to the end, I just start repeating from the top.
Oh,
If it would have had a scroll, I would have just had it scroll up 1 and then continue on the bottom. So you'll now see it just starting on the top. So
it looks so seamless, even though it's replacing.
yeah, it's kind of cool to
Oh,
watch.
crazy.
I actually like it better this way than to scroll the screen, honestly.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I
Yeah.
thought this would make a great background, just to run something in the background, you know.
Yeah.
Yes,
ZX81 screensaver.
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
So yeah, I did that one, and then I don't know if you guys, if I ever mentioned it before, but I was like 25 plus years in the video game industry.
All right.
And I collect especially old vintage arcade machines and stuff. And Adam, yes, I do have a Bally Astrocade as well.
Oh, see, you rock. I knew you were the coolest one here.
And I have both basic cartridges.
All right.
But I don't have the cable for the first one. But anyway, I get it. Atari, especially Atari 2600 stuff, really interests me a lot and stuff. So I'm constantly on the Atari 2600 pages, and also the Intellivision. One of the things the Intellivision had was the higher resolution, and you see these little Running Man graphics.
The Running
that are
Man,
just
yep.
common among almost all of the Intellivision, but it has a different aspect ratio a little bit for the characters, and they're a little more than 8 characters, 8 bits wide. But I thought, oh, that would be the perfect thing to try and animate. And I just happened to be on the Atari page, and somebody had actually adapted the Running Man over here on the right to the Atari, which is 8 bits wide on its pixels. So I created the Running Man with using 2 characters, a top half and a bottom half. Let me go back here. So the first one I did, let me turn the speed down a little. Oh,
You gotta.
yeah, it won't let me change it while I'm doing that. Now we can turn it down.
Yeah, you were running it too fast for us. Slow down, slow down.
Yeah, all right. Okay, we're at 1x speed now.
Just confirming that the
That's not
Sarix
right.
emulator has the WRX.
Yeah, so yeah, so
that is pretty cool.
So he's 2 characters. The upper half is 1 character and the bottom half is a second character. So he's just,
Greg, are you familiar with that intelligent game, Thunder Castle? I think it's called. Basically, a lot of the games have the Running Man, but this is basic. Like I'm looking at it, I'm like, I feel like I'm playing Thunder Castle. At least I think that's what it was called.
yeah,
Come on, man. You got to be playing Night Stalker, man.
Right, that's
yeah,
true too.
They use the Running Man in lots and lots.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So he's just running in place. So I'm like, he needs to do a little bit more. So
Put him to work.
Right.
So I set him up. So he's a little blinky in single speed, but if we crank him up a little bit,
My lord.
we can get him running across the screen. I wanted him to turn around the other way, but I didn't have enough characters because I'm using 2 characters per thing, and I forget how many animation frames. You only have 25 that you can define. But the cool thing is it sets apart graphic space for the high res versus just the normal screen. So you can actually flip flop between a normal screen and the high res. and it will retain what it has. I'm not doing any of that, but it has that capability. So
Greg, to be a little clear on my part, because I'm pretty ignorant about this stuff, like this would not run on a regular ZX81. So if I got one with a 16K, it won't run?
if you modified your 16K,
If I modify
RAM
it,
pack,
okay.
it will.
Okay.
That's that little WRX modification that you have to do to it.
Yeah, right. So there's a
Yeah, Adam, I just checked on the Zsarix emulator does support this.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I have no idea if I change the hardware. Let me turn it off. I have no idea what happens if I turn the WRX off. I've never tried it. So
I can cover.
This
let's
makes
see
you
what happens.
this makes you wonder what might have been back in the day.
Yeah, it's a shame that they didn't allow you to do user definable graphics, because the ZX81 would have been a really cool machine, and it would have been a simple thing to put into the ROM. You know, but I guess when it ships, oh well, that's what happens. That's what you can probably expect if you just load it on your ZX81.
You
right
just
there.
kind of zoomed in to 1 pixel on your Running Man.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what technically is going on there, but
Yeah.
like David was
Yeah.
saying, you know, obviously it's using you're stuffing some RAM into the, you know, that 8 to 16K area, right? And then
Yeah.
you're putting these UDGs into that RAM, and I guess pointing the Timex ROM to, or the Spectrum ROM to read those, right? Is that
Yeah, essentially that's what you're doing. It's
okay?
got a routine. If you'll notice everything here, it's using the 22722. That's basically the start of the assembly code. So this line 30, where it's got the C, that says clear the screen. H says put it into high res mode.
yeah.
Right here, actually, this is where I define my characters.
Oh wow.
It's once again, you call that routine. You put the U, which says it's in the high res mode, then the ASCII character that you're going to define,
Yeah.
and then 8 bytes defining it, going top down, defining the bits of the character. So it's pretty simple. You can actually put it on one line. You don't have to redefine that number of the ASCII character. It starts at, I believe it starts at 192 is where the thing, and you can do up to 25. But if I put another 8 characters on there, or after another 8 bytes, it would assume that 195 and consecutively go up. But it was just easier for me to see it visually and edit the characters. So you can see, these are the ones I'm doing. So that's it. So it's pretty straightforward how it works. And then to print stuff to the screen, once you're in the high res mode, you just use print and then the user 22722, and then you use the @ commands just like you would with a print. And then you use the CHR string of whatever characters you've redefined. You can also print out normal. You can actually use that with integers as well with your numerics, but it only goes 0 to 64K. If you want to print like a floating point or anything like that, you've got to convert it to a string first, and then you can print the string. So that's kind of a slow process, but you know.
Interesting.
That's
What
cool.
do you know why off the top of your head why you can only have 25? Is it a space issue, or is it?
I'm sure it's defined because it's in the character. If you go too far, which is actually a caveat here if you play with this, if you go too far, it will overwrite memory and it will trash itself. So if you're testing, and I discovered this the hard way, save before you run the first test. Because if you make a typo that messes it up, you're retyping the whole thing. So I'm looking to see if I can find a utility that will let me merge the stuff on type or type on top, so I can load that other utility in memory and then continue on. You start with whatever it has first. And of course, that's the line 0, and that's where it hides all the
code. Yeah.
Does this load into above RAM top?
No,
No,
it's
this is
just,
in the-
it's in a RAM statement. So it's just in your basic.
Oh.
It's just in your basics. You don't have to do anything special as far as memory goes.
Greg, last week, I briefly mentioned this little board I had gotten to do memory upgrades that give you 32K instead of 16. And essentially it fills that second 8K above the ROM, between the above the ROM, and gives you the RAM, the normal 16K, and then it gives you another 8K above that. And the reason that Trevor Jacobs basically did that is because of his interest in high-res graphics. So I haven't refreshed my memory and looked into this memory up here and looked into how high-res graphics is done on the Timex, but that will be like a super cheap way to get 32K mapped correctly. So
Yeah, I imagine if you could get all the ROM and RAM and somehow run it in RAM, wherever it defines the characters, you'd in theory be able to redefine any character. Although it would be global, so all your
Yeah, and I
A's
know, and I know, Stuart, I was kind of looking at that too, because since you sent me one of those, and there's different ways that different companies. That's kind of like Greg, you're showing. There's different options for high-res graphics, right? In the ZX81.
Right.
So Memotech did theirs and their HRG add-on thing that you could put on the back, and I guess this one here, I don't know. I guess obviously it was somebody had to add that inside the machine. I don't think, or is it on the RAM pack itself? You have to take the 16K RAM pack apart and change some stuff inside of that. Is that how that works? The WRG or WRX?
What would have this stuff goes back to Fred Nackbauer, Wolf Richter, and I think it was maybe Tom Bent who designed an 8K expander that you could plug into the back of your 1000, right? And so Fred sold it and sold this high res extended basic thing that was written in part by Wilf and in part by himself. But that little, he called it a scram board, but it was kind of like a hunter board. I don't know if you're familiar with the hunter board, which was an expansion for the 1000 that was published in Radio Electronics, I think, that let you put static RAM or even EEPROMs into that 8K space.
I just posted a ping of what the WRX mod is. It doesn't require.
Oh, okay.
It just requires cutting some traces and a jumper, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, obviously, the memory map in the ZX81 is not fully decoded, obviously, right? That's why they talk about, even in the manual, you're going to have like ghost copies of things in the memory map if you try to go there, right? So obviously you have to decode that 8 to 16K block, and then you have to address the memory that you want to put there properly. So I'll have to take a look at that. But I know, like Stuart was mentioning, Stuart also sent me some chips that are just, they're just 32K chips, right? They're 226, your 8K by, 32 by 8 static RAMs. And so there's no, you're going to have to do your own decoding there.
Right.
Or
So
your
most
wire.
people, because the 32K static RAMs is a very popular available chip.
Mhm.
People, even when they're doing their internal upgrades to 16K, typically use that chip. You can just bend up 4 legs on it, do a couple of jumpers, and you're good to go for 16K. What Trevor's board does is it adds a chip to a 32K static RAM that does that address decoding, basically. That's what that one chip extra does. Yeah, and if you're bothering to open your case and everything. So I haven't done it yet, but he considers his board pretty much to be an open source project of his, and documenting it. And so hopefully I have, like a bunch of those boards soon. Actually, he gave me 5 boards, but I didn't order any ICs yet to populate them. So, but in time, I expect in a month or so from now, if anybody wants those boards, they'll probably cost me with the chips on them, I don't know, $4. So if anybody wants some at $4 a piece, because they've got some ZX81s around and want to use play with what Greg's doing on a real ZX81 or TS1000, we'll be going for it.
Very cool. Very cool.
Can I ask I don't know if this is public knowledge or not, or if I should bring it up here, but I'll bring it up just a second here. So Stewart and Carl have been in communication a bit in the background. Is that something you can share with us?
Yeah,
because that happened since the last meeting.
Yeah, either one of us can say what's going. At the last meeting, I said I was going to get you a
right.
ZX81.
You're trying to get me a black and white system for some reason. I don't understand why.
Because it's an improvement over the
I don't know what you're going to say, but don't say it.
It's because you're, a contributor to this group. You had a lot of energy to it. And I thought personally that you should have one, ZX81. That's what's behind it. So when I got ready to send one, I realized because I had upgraded 10 this summer at the end of the summer, but I only have 3 in Brooklyn. And as I've started into multiple projects, I realized that if I end up like burning one out, and I've already modded one with the 32K graphics board I was just telling you on, and I've got a couple of other projects where I'm prototyping printed circuit boards. Be able to say more about that when they come back from China and they know if they're working about a month. I realized if I destroy one of these, I have to make a trip to my summer house, which I'm not otherwise doing till mid-April at the earliest. So then I came up with this scheme of, well, Carl mentioned he's got some ZX81s, mostly waiting on parts like keyboards. So I put a little care package together and sent it to Carl. And it did include both some original membranes, back from 1980s. I think, I forget the exact numbers, but 3 or 4 with that say rub out, the ZX81 style, and one that says delete, the TS1000. And then I sent 3 of the tactile keyboards that I'm importing from Germany and selling on eBay. So that should take care of any ZX81s that were dead solely because of keyboard issues. Another problem was, and then I sent 5 video upgrade modules that those same things. So if he's modding any videos, he could get some clear video. And I had some of those RAM chips. So I sent him 4 RAM chips. So if he's modding stuff, and I dumped the problem on him, is what I really did. I said, you're out there, get out of a computer.
Out in the desert.
Yeah. And hopefully he can elucidate on that. And I figured if we're going to try to twist your arm and get you interested in this computer at all, I should make you feel like you've got the what with stuff. So I sent some books and some tapes.
Oh,
yeah. Cool. And we'll see if it works out. And worst case, I will have to go to the country and get you a computer. What I was not able to solve and came more to the forefront, even though it was mentioned that, ULAs are a problem, it really, came in my own mind to the forefront that yes, where the thing that's really limiting the repair of ZX81s no longer is video or keyboards or RAM. All those are easily solved. It is the fact that currently the ULA replacements are about $35 plus shipping from New Zealand. I ordered one and got, because I was curious about it. So I have my first one. I got it 2 days ago. I haven't plugged it in. it solves two problems. It gets you the ULA and it gets you 32K of RAM in there. So it does more than that. Maybe we can get Charlie Ingley from New Zealand on one of these Zooms, and he can tell us if there's even more than that. About the story. I'm sure we'd like to hear that. But anyway, so I want to play with that. I know that the chips might be a little higher priced now than they will be in a year when the shortage, all the chip shortages are turning into chip gluts. If you read the, everybody's building fab labs. The United States is spending, U.S. government, your taxpayer is putting in about 80 billion towards it. So the United States doesn't want to be dependent on chips coming from Taiwan. Of course, China could take over Taiwan. There could be a problem. So we're building, everybody's building fabs. Even the Taiwanese companies getting money from U.S. government to build fabs in the United States. So, of course, it takes years for that. But the price in because of a shortage of chips will, that will be short terms. Maybe that'll bring the price down a little. But clearly, ULAs are the remaining, I'd say, weak point, and that I couldn't help Carl with.
Yeah.
Carl, you want to add anything?
Sure, I had a couple of things, and I know Ryan, Ryan actually had two machines that he brought obviously over with him, right? Adam, when he, yeah.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, as you can see
What
there,
we're
one of
alluding
them,
to is a couple of weeks ago, right before our last meeting on the 17th of December, Ryan and I got together with Carl, and we got together with some not 2068, sorry, ZX81s or Timex 1000s. Now I'm forgetting. Go ahead.
yeah.
Is that right?
So obviously, he has one that the S key for some reason, like I said, got cut out of it, physically cut out, right? So that obviously the keyboard needs to be replaced. So
right there. It's right there.
Yeah, somebody saved it and taped it to the back. The main thing was, let's try them out, right? Do they work? Do they not? I figured the keyboards probably would be a problem. That's the general thing after 40 years. And so I had purchased one, I don't know, earlier this summer that I had never even tested. So I brought that one over with me. Ryan brought those two over. And so we had three of them. The one that I bought, we powered it up and it's just a black screen, right? And I'm assuming that, no, I think we took the CPU out, we took the ROM out, we took, I think, everything out and swapped it between them. And so everything works. It's definitely the ULA in that machine. It's putting out a black screen.
Well, if
So
I
I need
recall,
to-
it wasn't just a black screen. It was a black screen. It was a screen that was so dark it appeared black, but you could see the cursor, right?
Well, that may be what's going on there, but I doubt
Yeah.
it because I think that one has the 210 ULA, which is supposed to have the back porch fix, right? So it shouldn't be doing that. And I think on mine, the one I have, it's a black screen. One of the ones that Ryan has, which obviously has the 184 ULA, which doesn't have the back porch. Yes, we did see the K in there, but it was a very dark screen. And yeah, so the thing that was Stewart that he sent over the composite mods, that fixes that, right? That's kind of designed for the 184 ULAs, and it has some circuitry in there to add the back porch. So it'll fix that situation on that particular 1000 that Ryan had. The other thing was, obviously he sent, the other purposes, we kind of wanted to get you a machine that was pretty basically loaded, right? It had the 32K.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Well, anything to get you more interest into the 1000. Yeah, we didn't want to
RAM packs as well.
Okay. Yeah, we
I
didn't
don't
want to
know if
give
they
you a
work.
2K machine, which or give you one with a RAM pack on
Hey,
it.
that's
and then
still
you-
200 more bytes than my Astrocade, so
So we wanted, and also not only that, I think Stewart maybe wanted to, the high res graphics, not something that I've ever really dealt with. So I mean, it's kind of piqued my interest a little bit with that. So yeah, the 32K and getting high res graphic capabilities. I did order 2 ULAs from what's his name,
Charlie Ingley.
Yeah, Charlie. I ordered 2 of those, and I guess he just shipped them out, I think, yesterday. and it's showing like 3 to 5 weeks. So I don't know exactly when I'll get those, but I think you ordered yours, Stuart. I think
I
early
think it took
December.
2 weeks. It only took 2 weeks for me to.
Okay,
get mine.
so
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's what happens in my case as well. I actually bought the whole set of his. Right, I bought all of the the Spectrum ULA, the Interface One ULA, and I think he makes a ULA for the 32 the Spectrum Plus, the one with the cassette tape in it. I think it's the 128 maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's for the 128 because it's a big. I think it might be like a 48 pin chip. Right. So anyway, so I got the whole set from him. So but I think, Stuart was mentioning, we would like to test some of these and see what kind of compatibility they have with the UDG stuff, right? So we can, because I think that would be fun to play with on a little machine like that, right? I mean, to get high risk graphics on
Do
such
those
a
work with NTSC?
Yes. Yeah. All this stuff should be for NTSC because it has a 5060 jumper, right? That's on the board on the ZX81s and Timex 1000s to begin with. So I mean, I think all of the ones that they shipped, you could go 50 or 60 hertz. It just changes the timing inside the ULA, so it pads it a little bit more. I think on the 60 hertz versions, it gives it some more. I read about it somewhere, but yeah, it changes the frame rate, right? Obviously, so it'll display stuff at 60 hertz. But anyway, that's kind of the. Go ahead.
So has anyone tried taking a PAL Spectrum and using that to convert it and just changing up the clock, the time on that? Do you know?
I don't think.
I'd like to import one.
I don't think I have a British, a UK ZX81. I don't have one. I don't think.
Greg, there's an NTSC ULA that was created, and there's a couple instances here in the States and I believe more in South America, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah, it's a rare. Now that you mentioned that, I remember hearing about somebody. Yeah, they did develop an NTSC ULA, but it's all the Timex 1000s that were here in the United States use the British ULAs. They didn't use a NTSC ULA, right? They used the 210 or the 182 or 184 or whatever it is, and there's an earlier one even before that one. But anyway, there's, like I said, there's a 50-60 hertz pin that's on the ULA, and so there's a jumper on the board that you'll have to pick. And obviously, the modulator is totally different, right? Because the British ones are on UHF channel, I don't know, 63 or something like that.
33.
Yeah, right. They're on UHF channel. Plus, there's a physicality difference, right? The UK modulators, the output is on the bottom part of the regulator or modulator, and the VHF modulators, the output's on the upper part of it. So if you look at the casing for the British ones and the US ones, the hole's got to be in the right place.
Yep.
Right. So, but other than that, I don't know that the ULA in and of itself is really, like I said, it does have a jumper, so you can tell it which one you want. I wish Timex did that for the 2068 because that might help us with some things. But the Portuguese Timex, they did, right? On the Timex computer 2068 and 2048, they use the same SCLD chip, and that one does have a 50-60 hertz pin on it, so that they could obviously put those things to different markets. Obviously, you have to change the clock crystal, right? Because the different color burst frequency. But other than that, I mean, to kind of get all this back together is to get Adam a machine. I don't know if he really wants one with. I'm sure
I
he
want
probably
them
wants
all.
one with the,
One.
well,
What's this one thing?
I'm pretty sure you want one with the tactile keyboard, right? Because obviously Stewart sent me some of the tactile keyboard things. Although you were typing, I noticed, and you were mentioning that, hey, this doesn't really feel that
on
bad.
the original keyboard, yeah.
Yeah, right,
Yep.
right. And I do remember, Stewart's got some of the.
So
the
this
UK...
is the US keyboard hole, up here. And then this is an empty shell, but this is where they would make the cut here. Before this was the European 33. So that's one difference in the shell. And the only other one is that the US had place for a to select channel 2 or 3.
Mhm.
And the other one didn't have that hole punched in it because it's just fixed at 33. And then the other difference is, depending on how new it is, the US ones eventually came with silver sprayed on the case on the inside to give us some, RF shielding. Whereas, I don't think that ever happened in Europe.
No,
Those are
yeah,
the,
it was just plain black. Yep.
Sorry?
So we are almost with half an hour left, and I just wanted to say real quick to Tim. I know I asked Tim Swenson about doing a QL demo, and Tim, I want to give you, time to prepare and time to actually do a demo. So I'll reach out to you, Tim, about scheduling that for a future meeting.
Okay.
And I just want to open the floor to whoever else wishes to shout.
I have a quick question actually about the QL, like that should just take anyone here like 1 second. Is it considered an 8/16-bit machine, or what's the deal there?
It's 32-bit.
32-bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, he uses a 68,000 Motorola or
It's got-
6830.
doesn't it have like an
60,008. So the
Doesn't
Motorola
like an 8-bit
basically is
straw.
an 8-bit bus, 32 bits with an 8-bit bus.
Yeah.
It's 68008.
Mhm.
So it's 32K internally, but it runs on an 8-bit bus. I don't know. I've never done any assembly language programming, so I don't know how that affects it, but it generally runs fairly well. And,
Thank you.
and unlike the other Sinclairs, it actually has a real file system.
That's because it came with the micro drives.
Right. I understand the concept of files, opening a file, closing a file. You have RAM. You can have files such as micro drive, hard drive, floppies, a RAM drive. So you can actually, a lot of times when I was doing programming, I had floppies. I was worried about overwriting the floppy too much in the same sectors. So I did all my programming saves in RAM and then made sure I copied the disk when I was done.
Does that answer your question, Adam?
Of course.
Okay. Gustavo, you looked like you were raising your hand for a second there.
Yes, hi, hello. I have a response regarding the ULA chip for the Timex. The main difference between the US version and the Portugal or PAL version is the frame rate that you can say you have a pin to adapt the refresh for the screen. Between the difference is 15 or 16, okay? But this is the PAL rate used in the most worldwide. But the main difference is the modulator, because the Portugal version of the Timex use RGB, okay, to build the PAL or NTSC version. But the NTSC original chip use the different color. U minus Y is a different. It's different. Use a different color schema. That's why you can adapt to the different NTSC or PAL very easy. Only in the modulator you change that. Okay, apart the rate of the horizontal and vertical frame.
Yeah. Carl sort of alluded to that. The Portuguese SCLD has RGB out. So does the Timex 2068 SCLD has RGB out as well, but it also has what's called YUV, that is what creates our composite video signal. And the Portuguese SCLD has a pin for the bright signal, which combined with RGB gets you 16 sort of levels of 16 colors, or 2 levels of 7 colors roughly. And that's what's missing on the American SCLD. And so that's why when you take the RGB signal off of the back of the 2068, you only get, 7 colors plus black. But with the Portuguese one, you can get up to 16 colors.
You know if with exists spare parts for the ULA chip?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if exists spare part?
No, there are none. Well, you know what? Let me modify that, because the capital area Timex Sinclair group back in the 80s or maybe the 90s, I don't remember the exact date. I think it was the 80s. They managed to order from Portugal a bunch of SCLDs, about 100 of them. And actually their first order, Portugal sent them Portuguese SCLDs. And so they had to send them back. And then they got, American SCLDs. So at one point there was a surplus of about 97 or so, if I recall from the article. But that was it. No more.
Yeah, and to mention to him, I have never seen any spare parts of the Timex Sinclair 2068 SCLD part.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably some for the Portuguese. I haven't seen any of those either, but they made, I think, a lot more of those, right? The Timex Computer 2068 and the Timex Computer 2048 than I think they ever made of the Timex Sinclair 2068. So
Yes, but at the very beginning in Argentina, we replaced some SCLD chips, but I don't know. I never see more than 10 units. Okay, in the repairs store. That's all. Never I can see more. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the chip order must have been late 80s, because when I got there in 88, I don't remember them talking about it much. Nor did they talk about how, hey, we got these spare chips, he wants them. It really wasn't discussed much that I'm aware of. So, and I kind of doubt they probably wouldn't have done it. When I left in 92, I think that was a bit late to do the order.
Yeah, I think, well, it was Tom Bent and
He was pretty inactive when I do. By the late 80s, early 90s, he was pretty inactive in that group.
Okay.
yeah, plus it's a quad flat pack kind of surface mount sort of jobby, and that was kind of cutting edge at that point in time, especially in 83, right? I mean, so I don't think it was something that there was even Timex was really interested in repairing, right? Taking it off and putting a new one on as a spare part, right? So I think if something came in and the SCLD was bad, they just, swap out the whole thing. It's not like a dip chip, right, where you can just pull it out of the socket and throw another one in there. That's really easy. This one, I mean, they could have put a socket there, I suppose, for that chip, but they didn't, right? It's soldered on the board.
Yeah.
Easy. It's easy now to take it on and off, but back then, people didn't have hot air rework stations and things like that, like they do now.
When you say they do now, I don't have one of those. So
well, I think anybody, yeah, that's
shame
true.
on you, Adam.
But yeah, so I think it'd be nice if we had some spares, but luckily I don't really see too many 2068s go bad personally from SCLD issues. Usually it's something else, mainly the RAM. So those you can still get. Obviously.
I want to give
Do you know if exists any project regarding to move the capacity to the FPGA for Timex, not for Spectrum, okay? Any special clone with FPGA for Timex?
I haven't really seen that. Obviously they did the Spectrum, like I said, with this, the guy in New Zealand, he recreated these SCLDs for those machines. So I guess the potential would be there. They're not that different, right? They're based on the same hardware. It's just Timex chose a different package to put it in, and they obviously put their own spin on the internals because of the bank switching and some other things that they were, had grandiose plans to do. But and like I mentioned before, at some point, the guy I was working with here, he actually had this internal schematic diagram, a big, huge freaking blueprint of all the internal gates and how they were hooked up. And I created a diagnostics program, and I kind of use that to, there's not much you can really test in the SLD, but I tried to do as much as I could. But I used that document to, so I could actually see what was going on inside. But I'm sure he had an NDA on that. And I know he told me to, don't show that to anybody or give it away or anything. And I had to give it back to him. I don't have it anymore, but.
And you didn't memorize it?
Yeah, this thing was a huge sheet of paper, man.
This is a perfect thing to do hypnosis.
I have a quick question, Carl. Regarding the missing ports for the expansion unit, you see the port FD and FC, right? The band switching. Exists any logic inside the SCLD, or that's only mentioned at the manual? Because it's important regarding the contention of the bus, if exists any logic inside the SCLD, or we can create externally, and that's it.
So all of the expansion stuff was going to be contained in the external box. There's no hardware in the 2068 aside from, reserving a couple port numbers and some programming in the expansion ROM to address that. Everything else was gonna live in that expansion box, including a really weird 4-bit chip that would transfer data 4 bits at a time.
No, that's right. But this is a memory mapped register. But I mentioned that the manual in the technical manual mentioned that port FD and port FC. In the very early manuals, includes the mature documentation that's mentioned a different expansion scheme using IO ports, not using the memory mapped register for the ABN, BN, and also the HS for expansion bank.
Yeah, I think like David was saying, I think most of that, I know they were going to have like a whole nother Z80 machine from what I read somewhere inside the BEU, right? There was going to be a whole nother computer basically running inside of that thing. And, there was supposed to be a CPM module. There was, obviously disk drive capability, disk capabilities. Micro drives are obviously going to be, so something of an interface 1 would obviously have been built into that as well. I don't, nobody knows anything about that because we're not privy to those engineers. But I think as far as the bank enable right line, which you might be talking about, that does go into the SCLD, right? And I think all that really does is just basically isolates, right? Is probably tri-states the buses, right? And it does that internally to the SCLD chip itself, so that whatever is attached to the outside can fully, is not going to, have any problems colliding with the internal stuff. And I think that's probably, as far as logic inside the SCLD, that's what I suspect is in there, is some, logic to tri-state the buses, so that anything that gets connected outside, won't be messing with the internal stuff.
Okay.
Other than the video memory, right? I think video memory is always going to be in the Timex. I don't think that was going to be external. But yeah, the 2 ports and the horizontal select register and any kind of memory expansion obviously was going to be external. So you couldn't collide with the bus, right, on those, especially the upper 32K, right, which is because the 16K for the video RAM, that's under 32K, right? I think that's in the 16 to 32K RAM area, and that's where all the video memory is. And of course, the SCLD creates the video, right? It reads that RAM to get the video information. So why are you going to bank switch that out? I know you can, right? potentially with the horizontal select register. And I think they were using bank 3, right, as primary there. I think every single bank that you ever had was going to have memory in bank 3 because you needed consistent code in every single bank so it could switch between banks and be running the same code no matter what bank it was in. Right. That's kind of what I am thinking in my head is horizontal or bank 3 would always have to be there on any bank. You'd have to have some memory there.
It does.
Yeah, the tech manual states that. So
yeah, that's their commonality between all banks is obviously chunk 3, and but I think chunk 4, I don't know. I guess you maybe could enable that. It really would depend on how you handled. You don't want the machine to crash, but like I said, video memory's in there, so if you did bank that out.
You can run, for example, in the doc bank, a program in the same address that the screen. It's no problem. You can run the program and only it's not receive any interference with the video because the SCL chip read directly for the memory, the video
right.
memory. You can run in the same space, a different bank with the C80 and not have any problem. And also in any expansion bank too.
Right. Yeah, I know the XROM, and there's also the cartridge slot. There's some logic there, obviously, that's in the SLD too. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm sure the NDA on that's probably expired by now, and I don't know if we could get somebody at NCR to say, hey, maybe you can look in your old files and see if you can find that blueprint. That'd be awesome.
So,
no, yeah, I don't know if we can contact NCR or Timex and also to put in public domain the schematic or
yeah, that would be
for Timex. The stuff is long gone. Bruno has made inquiries, and when he inquired, it was long gone. For NCR, who knows? Tim pointed out that Claudius, whose last name escapes me, in Poland, designed a replacement board for the replacement 2068. I assume based on the Polish, 2068s, and also designed a replacement SCLD. And Tim posted a couple links in the chat, and then Mark has posted a link.
Yeah, it looks like he has the stuff all on YouTube as well, and he has the SCLD test here too.
Yeah, so we should get him to.
Pretty cool.
This is a 2048 clone, but still same thing.
Right.
We should get him to come on and talk about this. I can't find any documentation about how to build his replacement SCLD though.
David, that brings up a good point. You were mentioning, and I didn't get a chance to read all those emails that were posted today to the group, but you did mention that you created a Google document that you'd hoped we could use for future meetings about what would be talked about. So maybe that can be added in there. Is that? Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that? I don't know if you have like that on your mind.
Yeah, exactly. I like I said, I created just a spreadsheet in Google Docs, and I've been taking notes while you guys talk during the meeting, actually, about some topics or people to invite. And then I have my own sort of backlog list. Adam, you brought up sort of a concept of a Book Nook segment.
Yeah, sure.
And so I've got that on the list.
I like that idea. Yeah.
And you'll have some books soon.
Yeah, apparently so. The ZX81 books are
1,000
or something.
That's right. Right.
Adam's our book reviewer anyway.
Oh, goodness.
I've loved your blog post.
Oh, did you see it? Okay, cool.
So I thought we could use this spreadsheet to put our ideas in, and then try to figure out when to schedule them. I've reached out to a couple folks that I've listed in this spreadsheet, sent some emails today, and I haven't heard anything back. They haven't bounced, so that's good news. But we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna add Claudius and his SCLD replacement. He came and he talked about his Timmy project of last year sometime, I think. But we'll get him back, and he can hopefully tell us how to build an SCLD.
Well, you built the Timmy, right? Is that right?
No, I've
Oh, you
built
didn't?
a couple Harlequins.
Oh, okay.
Which are a reverse engineered version of a Spectrum. And actually, that reminds me, the guy who designs and sells the Harlequin boards has posted to Facebook that he's working on one that is 2068 compatible. It'll have the various video modes of the 2068 SCLD. I don't know. I'll have to circle back with him and ask. I don't know that it's going to have the other stuff like the bank switching features. But I know that he's probably still working on that.
Well, it has to have some, right? Because
Does
there's
it?
bank switching going on in the 26.8 now.
Because of the video modes.
No, because
the
the
XROM.
XROM and the cartridge slot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he might have been referring just to the video modes. I don't recall.
But I mean, if he can make,
question.
if he can make a replacement, and if he's reverse engineering the video, if he could give us a bright output, that would be great.
Uh-huh.
I know it's in. I know it's inside of that thing, right? Obviously, it's inside of it, but
it's in there somewhere.
It's not brought out.
To do that is very easy because you need to copy the 7-bit out, and that's it. Because the bright signal is in the byte, in the attribute byte for the screen. You need to create a parallel channel to the output, and that's it. It's not easy.
Well, on the Portuguese one, there's a bright pin that comes out and it goes into a tank circuit on the modulator circuitry to, basically to make the colors brighter. So there's just an on or off signal. But on the American, on the Timex Sinclair 2068s, that's all that circuitry is inside. We don't get a bright pin that comes out. So when we do our RGB mods, we don't get access to that bright.
Oh, right. But if we can create an FPGA, that's it. We can.
Right. We can make our own.
If we
can
that.
certainly bring that out. Right.
We can extend.
As long as we set it so it doesn't do the bright black, that messes up all of the compatible stuff. So whoever makes it, don't make that one bright, or make it an option to turn it off at the very least.
Jeff, are you taking notes here?
Oh, that's already in my FPGA. So
okay. Well, and see, that's another solution. Instead of just recreating the SCLD, is to have a little external device like what Jeff's working on to solve the problem. So Jeff, that'll be ready by
next meeting.
I still have PCBs coming in.
Okay.
David, we're down to about 10 minutes. Do we have some business we need to attend to before in the next 10 minutes before we close out?
Well, our next meeting is January 15th. It's a Sunday. It's at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And, if you're further west than Eastern, just count down. And if you're further east, add up.
I hope you're a good swimmer.
Tim Horner, what time is the Sunday meeting for you?
Today, the Sunday meeting today, which is the
2 p.m.
That's 7 in the morning. So
7 in the morning. Oh my God!
The next day.
Oh my God! What time is it for you now?
About 5.
Oh, okay. So this is reasonable for you. Nice.
In Argentina, it's 1 a.m.
Wait,
oh my God!
What?
1 a.m.
Oh my God!
Dedication.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay. So I'm gonna send. I did send the link to the list, but I'll include I'll resend it to the spreadsheet, and feel free to jump in and add your thoughts. Some Timex folks are no longer with us, but put their names in there, and if you're interested, and I'll tell you whether I know whether they're still above ground. as it were.
Well, David, do you have enough time in the next couple of minutes to tell us for the last week you've been working on, I think, updates to your site? What was that?
Oh my God.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. All right. So I run the website out of WordPress, and I have been using this plugin that pulls together. It lets me write code to pull together all of these various pieces onto a single web page. And last year, the guy who maintained it says, "Yeah, I'm not going to maintain this anymore. We're moving to a new module." And I installed the new module, and I looked at the code, and I thought, "Ugh, I'll do this later." Well, later finally arrived, and it took me a lot longer. It took me all week. I was off this past week. It took me all week to rewrite the majority of the code that I had been using to work with the new one. And I took the opportunity to upgrade the template as well. So hopefully it's a little more readable. And one of the things that I want to do this year, since Adam brought up the question of, what are your New Year's resolutions? One of the things
I don't want to break your heart by having you work for a week solidly on something, but go ahead.
One of the things that I want to do this year is write sort of, some beginner guide pages. Like, I just got a 2068. What do I do with this thing? How do I do, how do I get programs onto it? Well, how does a Spectrum cartridge work all in one place so that you don't have to go digging and asking the questions that
So almost like a FAQ.
Well, kind of, yeah, but even more hand-holdy, and asking the kinds of questions that Adam asks, like instead, when you
like, how do I do this?
Well, what's WRX, right? What does that mean? Well, how do I do this? Yes, exactly. How do I do this, right?
All valid questions, by the way.
Right, and people, I've seen a lot of 2068s on eBay, for instance, that don't have any power supply, right? And
same thing, yeah.
Power supplies are a problem because the world has switched to center positive, and the 2068 is center negative. So, what do you do with that? Well, it turns out the answer is buy a center positive, and then buy this special little cable that's like $3 that does the polarity switching for you. But not everybody knows that.
Or just cut the cable and swap the cables and resolder. That's what I do.
But a lot of people can't solder. I mean, there's a lot of folks who are just really intimidated.
They need to learn. Oh no.
Listen,
keep them out of your shrink wrap.
We want more involvement, not less.
And I've been soldering since the early 80s, man. It's not that hard.
David, what I was actually able to do is I just sent it to Timex last week, and they sent it back right away. They fixed it for me, sent me a new keyboard. Right?
Oh, so
they don't do that for you?
Rock? Uh-huh. Yeah, they're still doing that, huh? Okay. Yeah, and what they do is they just swap out the board and send you, one that works.
Adam in his time machine.
Uh-huh. Right, that's right.
So quickly, speaking of time machines, there is just one thing. Since Tim just said something, I actually got Chat AI to write a QL program as we were talking.
Nice.
I wrote a basic program in Super Basic to do a spreadsheet on a QL.
Wow.
Wait, is this a variation of the spreadsheet for the ZX81?
Totally different, actually. Totally different. Chat AI is amazing. I just can't believe it. I've written firewall rules, but have it writing in Spectrum Basic and in QL Super Basic. I did not think it was going to do anything in QL Super Basic. It will not do anything for the Timex 2068. It actually says not enough units were sold, and it doesn't know how to do it.
Mark, I would like to ask you about that. Like, so I know what Chat AI is. So how did you phrase your question to get it to spit out that output?
So I wrote something like, so for like the ZX81, write an advanced program to show the graphics capabilities of the ZX81 in Sinclair Basic, and it spits out the program like within a minute.
I know it's like both amazing and a little scary to me, but yeah.
But I did not think it was undo it for the QL. I was just having this. Tim was speaking, and I was like, QL, let me try it.
So Mark, can you post the code that it produced to the groups? dial list? That'd be great to see.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'll email it, so I won't put it in the chat here.
Yeah.
But I'll email it to the group. Sure.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we got a couple minutes. Does anybody have any last minute pot shots?
Actually, I got one question. How bad was Buffalo?
Oh my
with the
God.
snow?
Well, it was actually bad. It was, this time it was really bad.
Last time you said, "Oh, well, there was somewhere else, not me."
Right.
Did
Last
it
time
get
it
you
was
this time?
south of the city. This time the city got nailed and hard.
Well,
right?
let's just say where in time we are. There was a blizzard last week.
Yes.
Go.
Yes, right. So starting last Friday morning, the snow started falling, and we were told here in Buffalo that this was going to be a big deal, and it turned out to be an actual big deal. It wasn't like the weathermen saying oh, something's going to happen. I think in total parts of the city got something like 4 to 5 feet of snow, and there were, until a few days ago, I mean, there's a street around the corner from me. It is 4 lanes wide with a middle turning lane, and as recently as like 3-4 days ago, it was down to 2 lanes going around these giant piles of snow, and they were still clearing out with front end loaders and little skid steers, still clearing out these monstrous piles of snow from the street. It was that bad. They just did not have the equipment or the wherewithal or anything to handle this. The city.
Yeah, they said it was the century storm. It was bad.
It was bad, but it was not as bad as 77, because I wasn't here in 77, but I've seen pictures, and the snow in 1977, it piled up 10 to 20 feet, depending upon where you were. And I've heard folks talk about how, you'd be walking on top of the snow and there'd be a school bus several feet below you. Like, so 1977, was the day after tomorrow kind of storm.
I actually saw pictures posted online supposing to be Buffalo in the last week that were actually from the day after tomorrow, and they were like trying to push that off as like a real picture.
Yeah.
It's like, that is not real.
No, but it was really crazy. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere. You were stuck inside for 2 days. And I was going out the front door to the backyard to dig a path so my little dog, could go do his thing. And then it warmed up, and now there's nothing. Literally, I mean, I've got a tiny pile of snow in my front yard.
Wait, it melted? I thought it would stay there all winter.
No, we got up to like 50, almost 60 degrees.
That's like New Mexico weather.
Yeah, it was 58 here in Connecticut yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of this stuff melted, and thankfully it didn't flood, because that's the thing that happens in the middle of the winter. Sometimes we get floods. But yeah, we survived, didn't lose power. It was great.
Hopefully you keep all that Timex stuff, a little bit off the ground in case you do flood. There you go.
We actually had some local flooding here due to the rain we had. We got 4 inches in 24 hours.
Oh,
a lot of places where the drains don't drain well or got clogged, you have a foot of water in the street.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
I think a whole 580 northbound from like San Leandro to part of Oakland was closed, and that's like 8 lanes wide.
Wow, that's crazy.
Due to flooding.
That's craziness.
Yeah, we had a lot of heavy rain in just a very short amount of time.
So to answer the question that was asked in chat about what's the deal with New Mexico people, the simple answer is like, I don't know why we're down here, but it's fun. And I'm glad we get to interact with each other.
Oh, that's kind of cool. But I'm just saying, out of all the states, you guys are the most represented right now, I think.
Yeah, like not only that, I haven't mentioned it because I don't want to bring it up really, but on Thursday, Ryan and I got together with another person who is a classic gaming guy, and we had, it's not a Timex meeting, but it was a Timex Atari meeting, so it was fun. Right. It was a good time.
Crossovers are good, man.
Yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. Oh yeah, and it's summer where Tim is, of course.
Yeah, true.
I have back to the ZX81 cases.
Yeah.
Maybe Stewart or somebody can answer this thing I've always wondered.
Same.
What the hell is this little indentation for? What?
You know, I think the place to ask that is the Sinclair ZX World Forum, because if anybody knows anything, it's those guys.
Is it
I was
on
under
the
the assumption it was so you could hook a plate and to an accessory so you don't get the RAM pack wobble.
Yeah,
That's
the
what I was
original, I remember reading a long time ago that the original RAM pack design looked more like the memo pack or memo
Yeah.
pack,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
RAM pack design. It actually screwed in on the bottom, and then there was some design issue and they just hurried something out the door, which is just a box that plugged in on the back. And there were actually folks that made this little aluminum bracket back in the day that screwed into that spot with a couple little self-tapper screws, and the bracket would hold your RAM pack. It would kind of snap into place. I remember seeing those advertised. I never bought one, but I do remember seeing those.
Well, it looks like we're about at 9 o'clock, or excuse me, 9 o'clock in New Mexico.
We are.
Do we have any last minute things to talk about or before we close out?
I got one for Greg since he mentioned the 2600. I mean, I want to think about this for a while. Greg, I don't know how well your knowledge of the 2600 is. You seem to know a lot. Do you remember a VIC-20 hardware that was allowed to program the Atari 2600?
I don't remember anything. I mean, they're all 6502 based machines, but most things are done with just cross compiling off another machine.
One of the
I do know what you're talking about though, Tim. Like I remember seeing ads for that in Compute, I think, magazine back in the 80s. Is that what you're talking about? I don't know if that came out though.
West Coast computer fairs. I want to say 83, 84ish, maybe 82. And in one area they had set up a Atari VCS then, because it wasn't 2600, and a VIC-20, and you could use the VIC-20 to do all your coding and then transfer across over to the 2600 VCS, test it, and then burn your ROMs from there or something. So another one we saw was that there was this company in the UK that's, so imagine what an Apple II looks like. You got a keyboard and a thing behind it, right? Well, they built a device for the VIC-20 that made it look like an Apple II. You put the VIC-20 in front, you had a thing behind it with an expander cartridge with a top cover for putting a monitor on.
I think you're talking about for the C64, and that was called the Mimic. I think
this was for the VIC-20.
Okay.
Because the guy, a friend of mine had a VIC-20 before the C64 came out, and so his dad was there at the computer show, and he talks to the British guy, said, "Hey, when's this available?" And he's like, "Oh, it'll be a while before available." It's like, well, what about that one? You mean the one I brought with me? Yeah. You really need to take that back to England with you? How much do you want for it? If I remember correctly, I think he actually might have bought it, because the guy's like, well, I guess I don't need to take it back.
Yeah, a lot of times I've been to a lot of trade shows and they don't want to take things back.
So, Tim, you, speaking of that very thing, there was a device that would let you write 2600 games on the 1000 and cross compile.
That I haven't heard of before.
Yep. I'll bring that to the next meeting. Not the thing, but somebody actually got one to review, and yeah. That always struck me as the most insane, ridiculous device, but there we are. And with that,
just one more thing. I'm just going to sit with Brian. I'll have to get with you and see if I can get those 1000s from you sometime, maybe this week or soon, so we can get Adam up and running on some really nice black and white stuff.
Well, wasn't there some sort of color mod?
There is a color mod.
Gracious.
Yes,
we'll talk about that next time.
Okay. All right.
There's a couple of
all right.
Have a good later.
Have a good evening, guys. It's evening.
Yep.